Between 2011 and 2021, the average number of weather-related blackouts rose by roughly 78% compared to the prior decade. That's according to a report from the nonprofit Climate Central. And there are storm clouds ahead, literally. A climate event called El Niño has emerged for the first time in more than 4 years. That's expected to bring more abnormal and extreme weather events in the year ahead. Aaron Jagdfeld is CEO of Generac, an energy tech company providing backup power systems for homes and businesses. He joins me now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So, talk about the season that we're going to be having this year and the sort of strain that we're likely to see on the power grid.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Michelle. So, your lead in there basically did a good job of outlining exactly what we see, which is, more extreme weather, right? The last decade, the last 2 decades, you could argue, we've really seen a lot more outages, and a lot of outages are driven by weather. I think what's changed here more recently, and as we think forward here and as we look to the future, is the extreme temperature swings, both hot, like we're experiencing right now, but also cold weather that is occurring in parts of the country that typically doesn't deal well with cold weather, like Texas had to deal with in February of 2021. Those types of extremities in terms of temperature swings are really having a major effect, frankly, on the stability of the grid. And this is really a broader discussion of the evolution of the grid as we work to decarbonize the sources, right? So we're replacing coal and natural gas-fired power plants with solar and wind at utility scale, and we can do that in a cost-effective manner. But of course, it's intermittent, right? So you don't have the ability to run those same assets 24/7 like you can a gas plant or a coal plant. And then on the demand side, we're racing to electrify everything in our lives. So our cooking, cleaning, cooling, heating, even transportation eventually, as electric vehicles continue to grow in popularity, these are all going to have a major impact on the grid. And trying to keep supply and demand in balance with these temperature extremes and these weather extremes it's a major challenge for grid operators and utilities.
And as you mentioned, a lot of these developments weren't even a thought when a lot of these power grids were first being developed. So especially when it comes to electrification, how far are we from the investments in tech that need to happen to get us up to speed and where we currently are?
Well, unfortunately, the utility industry moves at a very slow pace, right? I mean, we're talking about really large, really complex systems. There are really 3,200 independent grid operators around the U.S. It's a highly regulated space, and of course, the individual grid operators don't always work together for solutions. So different solutions are evolving at different rates and different types of paces. But the reality of it is we're probably decades away from where the grid is kind of fully modernized, if you want to use a term, right? So some people call it grid 2.0. And that's going to happen. It's going to play out over the next several decades as the technology comes into the space. And really what we're doing is we're going to change the nature of the grid. Instead of delivering power from these central power plants to homes and businesses, a lot of times power is going to be generated closer to where it's going to be consumed. So whether that's a rooftop solar array on a home, or perhaps a local wind farm or a geothermal loop or hydro, those power sources are going to be consumed and produced closer to where the consumption is going to happen. So we're going to decentralize the power grid. So that's kind of the first order of business here. The good news is the technology is evolving. It's just the bad news is it's going to take a long time to apply that. And it's a very complex solution.
And do we know, will the costs of some of these upgrades to tech, will they start coming down? We know that with any sort of novel tech, everything can be quite expensive, as we saw with solar panels. Are we seeing, though, tech to improve the grid? Is that cost coming down as well?
Certainly for utility scale wind and solar, those costs have come down considerably as those industries have grown and as the technology's improved and scaled. But of course, some of the other technologies to deploy that, and then the resources needed to implement that, right? So whether you're talking about the installation of the solar and the wind turbines themselves, or you're talking about other technologies like battery technology, which is going to be a really critical technology that's going to need to evolve both in performance as well as cost here. Because again, as we said, solar and wind are intermittent sources. So really to make them more effective, we're going to need to add storage. And so that storage is probably going to take the form of a battery, some kind of chemistry. Today it's lithium ion. But that chemistry and that battery technology needs to go a long way before it is on par with existing technologies today. So the cost curve is we've got a long way to go in total. It's been estimated that to get to the modernization that we need for the grid, it's something north of a $4 trillion investment over the next 20 years.
I mean, so essentially you have the increased cost and the distance between where we are now and what the grid actually needs. And then factor in also El Niño season kicking off, which is going to affect everything from construction jobs, agriculture, a lot of businesses relying on some of this, consistent power. Talk about that economic impact and how you see Generac's role in this.
Yeah, I think you're hard pressed to find any homeowner or business that today doesn't rely on, a continuous source of power, right? I mean, you think about even in our own lives at home, the hybridization of work, right? People are working from home more today. Their kids are learning at home today. We're shopping at home. We're exercising at home. I mean, home has become the sanctuary as we've called it. And then of course, businesses are relying much more on technology, right? And you talk about technology that's in place today and technology that's coming in the future, like AI. All of this takes electricity. It takes electrons to make these technologies work and to make businesses operate efficiently and to make homes livable in the future. And so what's happening, at least for Generac, is that people are turning to the products that we manufacture, whether they be generators or residential energy storage or products that back up businesses. They're looking for resiliency, right? Because they know that outages are occurring more frequently. They're lasting longer when they do happen. And they're creating a lot more disruption, not only in personally for your life at home, but obviously the disruption that happens in a business. That's dollars and cents in terms of the impact. So what's happening is that homeowners are taking that into their own hands and business owners the same. They're investing in resiliency type of assets, whether, again, generators and batteries, things of that nature, so that they can protect those sources of power that are so critical to the way they run their business or the way they live their life.
You certainly have to have a plan when the weather is extreme weather being so unpredictable at the moment. A big thank you there to Aaron Jagdfeld, Generac's CEO. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.